Have you ever looked at someone else's life and thought, why does everything seem to be easy for them while I'm over here struggling? Maybe you've been working hard for a promotion only to watch someone less experienced or less qualified get it. Maybe you're dreaming of having a family, but infertility has left you heartbroken. Maybe you grew up in a family that never really saw you, never really supported you, and now you're left wondering how much further ahead you would be if you'd had a different start in life. Here's the truth. It's not fair. And life isn't fair. And if you've ever felt like you've gotten the short end of the stick, this episode is for you. We're going to talk about how to change the narrative, how to change how you think when unfairness is surrounding you, is making you feel like you're drowning, making you want to throw your hands up, throw in the towel and say, why me? You know you don't want to have a victim mindset, but it's hard when everything seems so unfair. So life's unfair moments were not meant to break you, but to build you up. You don't have to stay in frustration. This episode is going to change the way you think about fairness. Let's dive in. Hey guys, I'm Trish Blackwell, and you're listening to the Confidence Podcast. This is episode 638, When Life Feels Unfair. We're going to be talking about how to stop comparing your struggles to someone else's struggles. We're going to talk about the mindset shift that's going to help you let go of resentment, because that's what happens when unfairness feels like it's just pressing in on us. Is resentment builds, bitterness builds, this slight edge of a victim mindset without even knowing it. And to be quite frank, we are often justified in it. But I'm going to give you some practical ways to move forward when it feels like life is working against you. Now, this came from a lot of actually coaching clients in my life right now are going through seasons of really seeming unfairness. I also want to say, all you need to do is look at the world, read the news, and we see how unfair life is. It's not fair that tragedy or sickness or awful things happen to one family and not the other. It's not fair that tragedy happens, that illness happens, that cancer, car accidents, plane crashes. We can go on and on. But the truth is, if you argue with the reality of the fact that something shouldn't have happened when it did, you will drive yourself to just extreme places of pain. There is a saying that says every time you argue with reality, you lose 100%. And when we argue with the reality that it should be different, and that's the truth, I believe it should be different, but the fact is that it is not different. The thing happened. Fact was a fact. And what we know is that the world is unfair, that life is unfair. And we're going to flip that conversation around a little bit as we explore this. But this topic came up because we had a listener who said, hey, Trish, she reached out on Instagram. If you're not connected with me on Instagram yet, please come say hi. I'm Trish_Blackwell over there. This is what this listener said. I just wanted to say thank you so much for your podcasts. It has been inspiring and it helps my confidence and anxiety. I wanted to see if you're able to do an episode on the struggle of infertility, like not being able to have kids yet when everyone else, family and friends, seems to be having them, or even 2 kids at a time, and we are just trying to have our first. It takes so much time to be where we want to be, and it feels like we're behind. I have all these goals, having kids, having a home, being better shape, and I've been working on these for 2 years or more, and I'm just not getting there yet. Thank you. So one, I need you to know, if you're in this boat, you're not alone. There is a pressure that we put on ourselves to say, this is where we should be. And I want to invite you to release where you think you should be or shouldn't be in relation to your goals. And the most challenging thing, I think, about life and fairness, since that's the topic of today, is that we judge what we should expect in our lives based on someone else's timeline, someone else's experience. And we have to call ourselves to a higher level of thinking to remind ourselves that our journey is different than anyone else's. And so we're going to talk about this because the struggle of infertility, as this listener requested, is a struggle fundamentally with what do we do with unmet desires? What do we do when life is unfair? That it's not fair that maybe you have to go through IVF and spend thousands and thousands of dollars when there's people who get pregnant the first time. You're right. That's it. Let's acknowledge what it is. When you accept what something is, the anxiety and angst doesn't go away, but it certainly does get less intense. It's not fair that maybe you were born with a certain body type versus another, or maybe you were born with a disorder or a disadvantage. That you were born, that it's not fair that somebody's born into a billionaire's family and someone's born into poverty. Agreed. But we have to look and say, well, what have I been given? How can I live my life the best of my ability with what I have been given? And my attitude is the start of it. Now, if we're going to talk about what's not fair, and it's very easy to look around and say, it's not fair that we're struggling with this. I had this for years because I struggled for so long with an eating disorder. My body dysmorphia and my eating disorder it felt like it was taking over my life and it would never get healed. I thought I would never be free. Because that struggle is what actually drove me to study confidence, and the only reason I'm here today. I love that what the enemy meant for evil, God turned into good. But here's what I remember thinking: it's not fair that I have to think about food all the time. It's not fair that I have to work out so much versus somebody else just to be averagely fit. It's not fair that no one understands how deeply intense this struggle is, and I feel so alone. It's not fair that my friends can go on these trips and I can't. My parents are in a season of struggle, or my dad just got laid off. It's not fair. I remember feeling that all the time, and I thought it was just stating fact. And whether or not it's stating a fact, we have to ask ourselves, is that helpful to say? Well, I want you to always look at your words and the things that you're saying to yourself and say, is this true? And then, is it helpful? Because it can be helpful, but not true to dwell on. And we also then have to say, is there another way I can think about it? Is there another story to tell myself? Because while it's not fair that I remember many seasons of my life where my dad did get laid off when I was a child and where finances were stressful and tough and scary, it also is not fair that I grew up with a dad, because there's children who don't. So if we're going to focus on what's unfair, we also have to look at the unfairness of the blessings that we do have. I had a lot of struggles growing up as a kid, but I also had an intact family structure. Now, my parents fought, but they didn't get divorced. Now they have an incredible marriage. So while I could have thought it's not fair that my parents are having a hard time communicating, it's also unfair that I got to be raised in a family that loves each other and that kept fighting for and that didn't have to walk through the hardship and heartache of divorce. So we have to, if you're going to focus on what's unfair in your life, you also have to focus on what is unfair that's a blessing. I remember thinking and wishing my body away so much. For those of you who don't know, I was an elite competitive athlete, particularly in swimming, and particularly at the time of my swimming days, I was a sprinter, so fast twitch muscles. Now, if you don't know swimming, you might not know this, but it is helpful in the sport of swimming, especially if you're a sprinter. If you're a distance swimmer, it's less important. But to be tall, being tall is advantageous. And I grew young. I grew at 10 years old. I was the tallest my age, and I was used to being tall. And I was 5'4" at the age of 10. And at the age of 41, I am still 5'4". So for about 10 years, I struggled with thinking it's not fair that I grew early and that I didn't keep growing. It's not fair that this competitor that I have more talent than, that I train harder than, that I'm more determined than, that because she's 6 inches taller than me, she can get off the block farther than me. That she in a pool, if you're taller, you're technically swimming less. And in a sprint where 1/100th of a second matter, that matters. And I can remember fighting with this fact of it's not fair. But where I was missing the dialogue, that it is not fair also if I think about the blessings that I had physically. It's not fair that I'm so athletically gifted. It's not fair that I lean and I'm a mesomorph and I easily put on muscle. It's not fair that I have 4 limbs, that I have eyes that see, that I don't have any physical handicaps. And so it's so easy to focus on what's not going well for us or what we wish we had that was different. And then we miss the blessings that we do have. Now, this is so much easier said than done, right? Because it's not fair, and there are no words to express the struggle and the disappointment that something like infertility or a closed door, or you're getting rejected in job interviews, and you're like, it's not fair. Why is this harder for me than others? And sometimes, y'all, there are questions in this world that we ask that don't have answers. They don't have answers that we can answer. And I have come to a place of acceptance where I go, I don't know why. These are answers only God has. And so I have to then go, where do I want to focus? I can shift my focus to what I am so grateful for that is also unfair that I have been blessed with. And when you change the way what you're focusing on, you will change what you see. And you will have more patience to get a bigger perspective to say, yes, even if it takes us 2 more years to achieve this goal, to get that job, to get pregnant, to do whatever thing, I'm grateful for the journey and I see the blessings I have along the way. Now, side note, I just realized if you're watching the video, if you watch on Spotify, if you watch on YouTube, you notice Sherlock is in here. I had to restart the podcast like 4 times. He's typically not, that's my puppy. He's typically not very needy. And he kept jumping up on my lap and pawing me. So I moved my chair over so he could be close. He must be feeling a little sensitive today. So if you see him and you're like, what is happening on her screen? Sherlock's taking a nap next to me in my pink velvet velour chair that I pulled over. As we consider fairness, I have a couple quotes. This is a Henry Ford quote that says, when everything seems to be going against you, remember that the airplane takes off against the wind, not with it. Maya Angelou says, you may not be able to control all of the events that happen to you, but you can decide to not be reduced by them. Robert Chu says this, the struggle you're in today is developing the strength you need for tomorrow. Les Brown says the harder the battle, the sweeter the victory. Napoleon Hill, who's one of my favorite writers, every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. And I want you to take whatever struggle, whatever unfairness, whatever tragedy, whatever thing that you're holding that pain onto, and allow yourself to just have the faith to believe that the struggle you're in today is developing strength for tomorrow. The things you wish you had right now, or the wish that you hadn't happened, doesn't make them okay. It doesn't change things. This is not toxic positivity. We're simply going, I see that there's something good in here. Buried deep within, this will be good. And if you go, well, what does that look like, Trish? How do you change that narrative? If you guys scroll back about 200 episodes, it's episode 444. That tells you my full story, my full rock bottom, some of the very, very unfair, abusive, traumatic, assault, devastating, like rock bottom things that have happened to me, and how I turned that story. Well, and very much like Maya Angelou said, you may not control the things that happened to you, but you can decide to not be reduced by them, and you can decide what you will do with them. And so I know it's so much easier said than done, and I know that I personally don't know your actual struggle, but I do want to encourage you. Every one of us has something in our life that is unfair, and it feels so, it's so easy to get into the narrative that we believe that we're just unlucky, and it must be nice if it had come easier. And then we start telling ourselves story that things come easier to other people, and that they are happier because of that. They are not happier because of that. They are not more special, more deserving, any of that. I want you to remember that they have their own things as well, and that focusing on you is where you have to lean in. You have to determine that the pain you feel today is going to give you the strength that you will have tomorrow. Every challenge that you encounter gives an opportunity for growth, has a deeper appreciation. I can remember even when I was in my young 20s, And my brother, he has an incredible marriage, incredible relationship. Many of you heard about him before. I've mentioned him periodically. He's very important in my life. But he met his wife when we were all in college together. So he met his wife when he was 20. She was 18. We were all on the swim team in school together. I was like, cool, this is great. I'm going to meet my husband in college. It's going to be wonderful. I can't wait. It's going to be so easy. I looked at Nick and I was like, this is what life will be. This is the path. You're going to meet the person you love. You're going to have similar things. And then they create this beautiful life together. And so when that didn't happen for me, when I couldn't find the person that I really wanted to spend time with, that I felt so misunderstood. I felt so lonely. In college, I dated, but I was like, why is there not my person here? And then in college, then after that, you guys, if you listen to 444, you'll hear my story of almost marrying the wrong person, of being abused, of being assaulted, of almost dying. I go, why? Why did my brother not have to walk through the pain that I did? It wasn't fair that he met his person and it looked from the outside to be easy. It wasn't fair that I struggled with loneliness for 10 years. But without that fairness, now that I know that, now 12 years, almost 12 years into marriage, to the person I needed to meet at the time I met, my gosh, I'll take all that unfairness over and over. It was just part of my story. My story was different than my brother's. And it doesn't make it fair or unfair. In fact, the season of struggle, of loneliness and assault and all the things that were unfair that were dealt to me during that time were actually given me the experience, the capacity, the emotion, the drive, the impetus to do the deep work in myself that led me to coaching, that led me to actually shift my whole career and to be able to understand other people's pain and suffering at a deep, intimate level. I would not be able to coach on loneliness, on heartbreak, on assault, on devastation, on rock bottom if I had not felt it first. So while it was unfair that I experienced it, it actually was a blessing. It has actually been advantageous. It's actually, God has taken that and turned it into something good. So life's not about looking at, gosh, this is fair or unfair, but it's taking what you've been given and saying, how can I do the best with the hand of cards that I have been given? I don't just need to wait for the storm to pass and wish my life was different. I have to learn how to dance in the rain, not just watch the storm and say, you know what, I wish that I was taller for my sport, but how do I maximize this? Now, what are some of the common things that I think have come up in my coaching? I want to list these out simply so you feel less alone. I think what's critical is that when life feels unfair and it feels like everybody else has it easier, it's very easy to feel alone and feel isolated. And when we feel alone and isolated, it's very easy to tap into that very toxic statement that is, what's the point? I want you to fight against that statement anytime you can, because there's always a point. And that often what's happening in our deepest struggles, God is preparing us for something so epic. He's working through that. He's building in us perseverance and strength, perspective. And there are still things when you go, that's unfair. I'm struggling deeply personally right now with looking at tragedies in the world and understanding why are some people's children taken from them at a young age. I know children this year that have died in fires. I know children who have died in these plane crashes. What it's doing is it's making me slow down and spend more time with my children. It's giving me deep questions for God I'm wrestling with. And I don't have answers to them. It's okay to not have the answers to the unfairness, but you can still see in the unfairness to say, wow, I'm thinking in new ways. I have a deeper appreciation and gratitude for the things and blessings I do have. And I will give praise and thanks, and I will not waste a day, a gift that I've been given. So some things that I think are common that often feel unfair are infertility or unfulfilled dreams, the pain of longing for something you can't control, which then, of course, you have to navigate feelings of grief and jealousy and hope. I don't know if you know this, but 10 to 15% of couples worldwide struggle with infertility. There's also the struggle of feeling like you grew up in the wrong family, Whether you didn't get the support, love, or resources you needed, maybe you felt like a black sheep, or maybe your family struggled financially and you had a lot of wealthy, rich friends that seemed to do everything and seem happier. Or maybe you grew up in a broken family, or you raised yourself and you go, well, gosh, I can't imagine what it'd be like to have two encouraging parents. And so we got to start healing and rewriting that story. Or maybe your story, the struggle is financial struggles or disadvantages, physical disadvantages, health disadvantages, intellectual disadvantages, watching others succeed with more ease. And one thing I can tell you, I don't have the answers to all of this, but I can tell you what I do tell my children in regards to if somebody is more talented than you, it doesn't mean they're better than you. It means that they've been given a gift. And maybe they'll maximize it. Maybe they won't. It doesn't matter what they do. It matters with what you do, with what you've been given. And I got to tell you, determination, hard work, commitment, and passion run circles around talent any time. Talent only takes you so far. It's easy to look up at somebody and go, I wish I was smarter. It's unfair that I have to work harder at school or work harder at this sport or work harder at being social. Just because somebody has the natural talent for it doesn't mean that they're maximizing it. Another area is being passed over, maybe in sports, jobs, you're dealing with rejection or feeling not enough or tragic setbacks while you watch others have it easy. And you're like, your whole life has been on hold, unexpected loss, illness, hardship. And this, I want to remind you that your story is so magnificent. And in these seasons of hardships, these chapters of your life that don't make sense, or they're very, like, I need you to remind yourself, God's not done with my story yet. And every great story needs a comeback, needs pain. And God uses that pain. Maybe it's unsolved trauma, abuse, unmet career, lack of career goals, lack of opportunities, unrequited love or rejection, or abusive words that have been said to you, that you've been mentally abused or emotionally abused or physically. Health challenges, chronic illnesses, injustice in society, or systemic inequality, or, it's not fair that I grew up in a very safe place in the United States. Like if I look at the global side of this, it's such a gift that I got born where I was. And if you aren't able to say that, I have a very, very good friend who was born in Bosnia at the time of the war, and I look at him and I'm like, he's like a brother to me, and I just think, like, and his family, got political asylum when he was like a teenager or young teens, and I go, it's not fair that he used to have to dodge bullets on his way to school. And it's the statements like that help me come into more full acceptance of, and I'm so grateful for the blessings. When I look at the blessings, I can allow for the other areas of my life where I have more pain, where the unfairness, I want it to be solved. Because I can remind myself of, like, there are other areas that I've been blessed in where it has come easy and it's not been for others. And it doesn't make it any easier to handle, but it just gives us a more mature perspective to say, I can keep going. I will, and this is why the importance of gratitude is so critical. I will give thanks for what I have, and I will remind myself that I have the perseverance and the determination to keep going through the struggle that is unfair. Because I believe that in this unfairness, there is something good for me. That God will take this and make it good, that there is a strength that I need, an experience that I need. I would have never been able to tell you 15 years ago, 20 years ago, that the pain that made me not almost want to live, like I couldn't leave the house. I was afraid of everybody, that I had such deep rock bottom pain that I could imagine that 20 years from there, I would be able to help other people through that pain. Or my deep struggle with confidence and the years I struggled with having the overwhelming and self-critical voice and self-judging voice and the burden of perfectionism, that all of that pain was used, that my pain it turned into my strength. It turned into my purpose. And it helps me be more effective in how I live. And now I have such a good contrast. I have such a deeper appreciation for the joy that I do have. There's also the unfairness of social exclusion, of parenting struggles. There are some parents who never have to go through seasons of going, wait, I've raised my kid amazingly. What has happened? Why are they turning their back on me? Why are we having behavioral issues? Why are they struggling? What did I do wrong? There's these, and so we have to ask better questions. We don't ask, why is it easier for them, or what have I done wrong? We have to start asking, what can I do right now? How can this be good? How do I believe that this will change? How do I keep walking in confidence and faith that this is not my story? There is no period to the end of this situation that is still being developed, that is not going to be the final statement, that you feel, I felt like it was unfair that I got stuck in bad habits, or my addiction to perfectionism, or stuck in life. Maybe you feel stuck in life, or life's not moving forward for you. When we focus on what's unfair, you're staying stuck. Instead, I need you to focus on what is so blessed in your life, and what could be good, or what you could gain right now from the season of unfairness, from the season of struggle. And if you think about it, when you think about bodybuilding or fit people who have muscles, who look physically fit, they didn't just wake up and have muscles. They worked resistance. They lifted heavy weights. They ran lots of miles. They did hard things to build something physically good, physically appealing. And so when you're going through your life and going through something hard, when life is hard, you have to remind yourself, this is where you get to be the coach to yourself and say, if it's hard, that means something good's coming from it. I can't wait to see what's good. I don't see what could be possibly good in this right now. But I'm determined to believe that if there's resistance in my life, there's going to be strength. There's going to be good. So what are some tools to overcoming life's unfair moments? I'm going to run through these very quickly. Journaling, gratitude, practicing radical acceptance, which we've already talked about, reminding yourself of the unfairness, of the blessings that you have, of finding purpose in struggle. And if you want to dial in and go deeper on those blessings, keep a Thanksgiving journal. Keep your gratitude journal. Practicing reframing your setbacks as stepping stones, faith, trust, letting go of control. And of course, I can invite you to come and get mentored and coached by me, and join our community in the College of Confidence. That's where I do my coaching. And I will help you change the way you're seeing a situation. My students often say, okay, Trish, here's what's happening, and it just feels very unfair. How do I change the way I'm thinking about it? And we coach through that. You can also, if you're a parent, you can do this, invite this concept into your own life and your household. But even if you're not a parent, I invite you to take on what Brandon and I do in our home. We consider fair a 4-letter word, because life is not fair. And so when our children, right, I have a 9 and 7-year-old who often go, well, that's not fair. His piece was bigger. It's not fair. She got iPad. He didn't. It's not fair. She got to do it. We go, whoa, whoa, whoa. We don't say that word here. We in our house don't say that word. Because, and we started that when the kids were young, because we just wanted to teach them radical acceptance of, you're right, there are things that are going to be fair and not unfair. And as a parent, I'm always going to do my best to make some things fair. There's going to be seasons and times where one of you is going to get something the other one doesn't, and it won't be fair. And I'm sharing that transparently so that you're prepared in the world to know that there will be times in your life growing up, maybe in a school, in a class, where one teacher favors somebody else. It's not fair. Or somebody gets a social ed, or there's a political pull that you don't get a job because of there are things that are unfair. And so the sooner we can learn to neutralize that through acceptance, we will be less flustered by it. And because when you're flustered or you're derailed by it, then you're rendered useless. I would rather you say, yeah, life's not fair. What can I do now? Because it takes you out of a mindset of why me to what now. So that's what we do. We shift from why me to what now. And that will help you see that your unfair moments, those unfair situations, can shape your resilience and can give you purpose. Before we close out today, Of course, we had the power phrase pyramid, but I wanted to give you some faith neutral affirmations about fairness. And I wanted to give you some faith-based affirmations. So first, the faith neutral ones. And I have these in the show notes. You can always get the show notes at trishblackwell.com/the episode number that you're listening to. So in today's case, episode 638. So trishblackwell.com/638. Here it is. My struggles are shaping me into someone resilient and capable. I am in control of how I react to life's ups and downs. Even when life feels unfair, I trust that good things are ahead. I have the power to choose how I respond to life's circumstances. And then for my Christian-based affirmations, if you share faith with me, and by the way, you're welcome to listen to this podcast, be part of my community, even if we don't share the same faith. Like, I'm just here to love on you, cheer you on, serve you. God has a plan for me, and I trust his timing. Through every hardship, I am being shaped into the person God has called me to be. Even in my struggles, I know God is working all things together for my good. I sometimes say, I can't wait to see how God uses this. Sometimes my prayer is, Lord, give me perspective. Help me see what's good here. Even though I may not understand why things happen, I trust that God's plan is always for my good. And our power phrase pyramid is this: I don't need things to be fair. I accept the unpredictability of life. Our next power phrase is, I know that God is good and he has a plan for me. And then our top power phrase is this: I can't wait to see how all of this is going to work out for my good. I believe it will. You guys, if this episode has been encouraging to you, make sure you hit that follow button so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. I want to invite you to come deeper and get mentored by me in the College of Confidence. That is our month-to-month coaching program where we are so confident that it is the most affordable, the most effective life coaching and business coaching on the internet, that it comes with a 14-day money-back guarantee. So go check it out, collegeofconfidence.com. I would love to get to know you better. I'd love to support you. And if you're watching this on Spotify, say hi, or on YouTube, please leave a comment. It helps me stay encouraged to take the time to do the videos. So if you like the videos, let me know. It keeps me keep them coming. We have some incredible episodes coming up, so I will see you guys on the next few weeks. There are topics you do not want to miss. I will see you there. Go out there today. Go be more of who God created you to be. Be you. Be free.